So welcome to this episode of the Lyrgus Wednesday webinars. We're delighted to have everybody here, and we're a diverse group to begin with. We've just upped the diversity today. So I think we might have teachers, we definitely have youth workers, we have the different sectors, but it's definitely broader than the youth sector today. So I suppose the objective of the webinar really is to share good practices with external organizations today and participants, how we work with young people on European topics. So European mobility, as you've read in the description for today, quizzes, cultural events, they're the type of things we usually do. And then today, of course, we want to promote Eurodesk as well. So I work myself in a multiplier, and that's the first bit of jargon, I guess, for today. So we're going to start with just a quick introduction to Eurodesk itself, and then we're going to move on in a way where you will see how we engage with young people in fun ways. We're going to hear from Europe Direct on how they run activities. They have some fantastic opportunities, including a Soapbox. Pauline is going to show us some interactive ways of just some ways of just opening up Europe to young people that she works with, and we can all learn so much from that. And then as we go through the program, you'll experience it for yourself, but we're going to finish up with the Eurodesk ambassadors in the presentation part of today before we have an opportunity to go into a breakout room. And I suppose with the Eurodesk ambassadors, that's where, you know, young people really lead this process out, all good youth workers, youth-led, and Ross will fill us in more about all of that. So without further ado, Malgorzata, I'm reading your name here. Why am I doing that? Is going to introduce Eurodesk, and please explain, as in your introduction, what a multiplier is. Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you.
I will. Thank you, TJ. So I put this first picture of the special Eurodesk cupcakes just to introduce some kind of like positive and optimistic element, hoping that someday we may meet you again face to face and have physical conversations. But today we can offer you this webinar as maybe a start of a new relationship with you in the future. So yeah, so my name is Małgorzata, and I have been working with Lyrgus, which is the Irish National Agency for the Erasmus Plus program and some other programs since 2003 as the Eurodesk Island coordinator. So because some of you may not be familiar with Eurodesk, just a few words of introduction. So Eurodesk is a free information service for young people and those who work with them. And our main mission is to inform young people and those who work with them on diverse mobility opportunities for young people in Europe, but also to encourage them to become active citizens, taking part in different programs and activities for young people. Yeah, so we provide diverse services. As I said, we provide lots of information, but also support to young people to access these opportunities. And we do this through our wonderful multipliers, which means our local cooperation partners and information points. We also run diverse awareness campaigns, such as Time to Move campaign every year in October, and support European campaigns and events such as the European Youth Event and the European Youth Week, which is taking place this year from the 24th to the 30th of May. So watch the space as well, because we will be running some activities for young people in Ireland and across Europe. We also provide training and networking for our multipliers. Just to show you the map of Europe, because Eurodesk is also a European network of information providers. We have over 1,000 such information providers at local, regional, and national level. So this is the most updated map of the Eurodesk national offices. As you can see, we cover not only the European Union countries, but also other European countries such as Georgia, Ukraine, and Turkey. So this is just a screenshot to show you which organizations we are working with in Ireland. And I think nearly all of them are present in today's webinar. So we work with youth information services run by YMCA, Crosscare, Youth Work Ireland. We also work with Europe Direct information centers, with Voluntary Service International, with Spoon Out. And since 2020 also, we have a group of young Eurodesk ambassadors. Okay, so I have just a few pictures to show you what kind of activities our multipliers run with young people in Ireland. We start at the age of 13, but many of our multipliers also work with primary schools. We think it's never too early to start talking about Europe and opportunities for young people in Europe. We also run lots of creative activities, inviting young people who volunteer with youth information services and other members of the local communities to propose such activities, also to reflect diversity of people living in Ireland and in Europe. Okay, so now we have a picture from one of our European Youth Week activities in Donegal Youth Service with volunteers from Spain who did European voluntary service there, and some local students who won some prizes in a competition. So that just to show you maybe a glimpse from some activities. So this was a fantastic activity run by Kildare Youth Services in 2019, the one before, where we talked about the European elections. So this is a workshop that Julie is going to talk about a little bit when we were exploring barriers to mobility with young people at one of our events. Oh yeah. And this is one of the activities run by the Donegal Youth Service as well. That was just to show you a few glimpses from different activities that our multipliers run directly with young people at the local level. Sometimes they go to schools, sometimes teachers bring their groups to the local youth information centers. Often they work with their own youth groups. Now it's time to move to just a few words about why we're running this webinar today and about the topic of the webinar. So as I mentioned to you before, we promote opportunities for young people in Europe and also opportunities to be active citizens in Europe and in Ireland. So sometimes we have a few challenges, of course, to promote such opportunities for young people. This is due first to the fact that it's not easy for a young person to leave their comfort zone and to move to another country, to leave their family, their friends, their familiar surroundings. So this is very natural. But I think in the case of Ireland, which also has a specific position at the edge of Europe, and also because of its strong connections to English-speaking countries, most of them non-European countries, it is a bit of a challenge as well to encourage young people to think about going to another European country. So therefore, our multipliers have been running lots of activities to bring ideas related to our sense of belonging to Europe, to our European identity with young people and for young people. This could be very simple activities like making young people curious about of other cultures, traditions, food, music, people, and so on, through quizzes, intercultural evenings and events. But this could also go a little bit further and focus on European values such as democracy, participation, respect for diversity, inclusion, human rights, democracy, and so on. And in this case, our multipliers also have run lots of interactive workshops, debates, quizzes, surveys, and other events with young people. So today we're going to show you some examples of these activities to give you a taste of how Eurodesk multipliers are working with young people about Europe, around European topics and some aspects of European identity. So I hope you will enjoy the event. And after the presentations, we also will have some breakout rooms where you could ask your questions and maybe explore possible networking at the local level with our multipliers. If you would like, for example, to invite them to come to your school or to your organization. So I'm going to finish now because I think I'm well over the time, but enjoy the event, and I will pass the floor now to TJ, who will introduce the next speaker. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Malgorzata. I love It's Never Too Early with that image of the primary school there. That's really cool. I'm learning too today. And yeah, just a reminder that just as Malgorzata said, for part two, or just the end of the webinar, you will be able to choose a room to go in and learn and find out more. And the Q&A will happen in those rooms. We'll explain more about how that will happen later. But also, as the presentations are going on, please feel free to post your questions in the chat, because that will help all of us as well when we get in there. So, so thank you for that. Okay, so now we're going all the way across the island. We're going to Ballinasloe. We're going to Una. And yeah, so Una has great experience of running interactive activities with young people as part of your direct activities. And sure, over to you, Una.
Okay, thanks, TJ. So I'm talking from Europe Direct in Ballinasloe, and today specifically we're going to talk about the Soapbox Competition, which is a competition that we run every year. So that's myself in situ in Ballinasloe. And that's we're actually based in an old convent, and that image there is a picture of what would have been the nuns' chapel. So when we have live events like the Soapbox, that's where we have them. So it's a really lovely building with lovely acoustics for people to do some public speaking in. So just a little bit of background about Europe Direct. There's 7 of us now based in public libraries all across Ireland. And part of what we do is we distribute information about European activities. And as part of that, we also host events. So the most exciting, I suppose, and the event we enjoy the most for young people is the Soapbox competition, which happens annually. So what we do is each Europe Direct Centre in Ireland will host an event in their centre. There's a regional winner, and then that regional winner goes forward to a grand final in Dublin. And that's hosted by the European Commission representation in Ireland. And they normally happen in really nice buildings. So the last few years, we had in the College of Surgeons or in the Royal Hospital Kilmainham or in Farmley. And that's a lovely day out because it gives everyone kind of an opportunity to visit a building that they wouldn't normally get into. So that's kind of always a bit of fun. This year was different, but we'll talk about that later. So just a little bit about the rules. That image is actually Ollie Turner. I don't know for Galway people, Ollie Turner's big in Galway. He works with Galway Bay FM and he's the sports reporter and everybody loves him. So we always get him to MC the event because he's a bit of a local celebrity. So there's in the competition, there's 2 age categories, 18 and under and 19 and over. Everybody is asked to give a 3-minute speech for or against a topic. They can deliver it in Irish and English, and we always have some schools in Connemara who take part. So we always have like representations in both, and it's judged normally by 3 judges. So the topic, usually we try and pick a topic that you can debate either way, not controversial, but something you can argue for or against. So here's an example of some of the more recent ones. This year, the 2021 was everyone wants to go back to the pre-COVID way of life. Some of the others, climate change is not my problem. For the year for 2019, for the competition in 2018, in the lead into the European elections, we had EU elections, every vote counts. And the year before that, we had Brexit, Ireland's opportunity. Okay, so just a bit about the prizes. The prizes are really good. So if you are involved in a youth group or know anything about it, please try and get people to get involved because people are always surprised how good they are. The regional winners usually win an iPad. The national winners win usually €1,000 sponsored by the representation, and then an MEP will usually support a trip to Brussels. And again, that didn't happen this year, but that, hopefully next year. There's usually a lot of national coverage about it. That picture of me and Juliet a few years ago, she was our winner, and that final was in the Royal College of Surgeons, and RTE were there, so they interviewed her. They interviewed her then, and we were all on the bus on the way home, like literally having the crack on the way home, and we turned on the radio and she was on RTE, so that was really lovely. Yeah, so 2020, obviously we weren't allowed to have anything in the building, so we decided to go ahead anyway. And what we did is we asked people to submit their videos virtually. So we gave them the option of like YouTube or WhatsApp or Dropbox. We give them various options that they could submit it. And then we created like a private YouTube link, which we sent to the judges so they could judge them all virtually. And then they got together via Zoom to have a meeting to decide who that winner was. And then we created, so each Europe Direct Centre created a video. So it's on our Galway Public Libraries YouTube channel. We created a video and we put that up on YouTube. And then for the national final, we submitted the videos of our winners, and they also created like a YouTube video that they ran as a live event. And for that video, and actually for our video as well, we were delighted to get some video messages and kind of messages of support and congratulations from, we had MEPs, we had the mayor, so like the Galway County Mayor, we had all the county librarians, we had head of the European Commission, we had, in a lot of cases, we had the chief executive of the local authority as well, and they all contributed to that final video. And that video then was, you know, run as a live event on YouTube. And just the, I suppose one of the advantages of that was that the kids in the school who normally might not be there, normally we could bring about 20 people to that final in Dublin. But in this case, the whole school were able to look at the final. And some of the, like the girl who won from Galway actually was highly commended, which is kind of like second. She was able, she is from Connemara, she has a lot of relations in the USA and in Australia. So that was an opportunity for them to see her giving her speech, which they normally wouldn't get. Yeah, so 2021, we're hoping to go ahead. It'll probably be virtually again. This year, we are hoping to involve, and we can talk to you guys about this later on. We're hoping that this year, because they have launched the conference on the future of Europe, and part of that initiative is to kind of encourage people to become more involved. So we're hoping that we might throw out suggestions to you guys and maybe try and get suggestions in for a topic. So the topic comes from the people, I suppose, rather than us deciding it. Hopefully we'll have a European theme. And that image there is Joanna, who was our winner in 2019. She actually won the complete final. So that's her with Sean Kenny, TD. So we, Margaret is always laughing because we always give people lots of food when they come. If you come to an event in Ballinasloe, you will get that food. Just telling you now. So we would have asked one of the young people, some of them, like what they got from it. They all said it boosted their confidence, it honed their critical thinking skills because they are judged in certain criteria. So they have to tick the boxes, you know, to get, you know, to do well. They find it personally very satisfying in terms of building their self-esteem, and just a bit of kudos. They usually get the chance to meet influential people. So when we go to Dublin, there's always a TD, the head of the representation, very often an MEP. We always have a bus that goes to Dublin. The bus comes from Connemara, picks up people in Connemara, Galway City, Ballinasloe, and we get on the bus to Dublin, which is just great crack. And like I said, sometimes if we're lucky, we might get a bit of a radio interview, and the prizes are great. So like it's a really fun thing to do. And like I said, this year we will be sending out invites. It usually happens, sorry, I should have said it, in the autumn. So it's usually October or November. This year it was November and the grand final was in December. So I will let you all know about that. And if you know any youth groups who might be interested, please encourage them to take part. Okay, thanks guys. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Una. So without any delay, let's go to Tipperary and to Pauline, who's going to focus on more interactive activities with young people to introduce Europe.
Thanks, TJ. Okay. Yeah, I'm the person that does lots of quizzes in Tipperary, and I suppose one of the reasons we do it is the rural nature of our county, and it's an opportunity to, I suppose, get the rural youth clubs involved in it, because a lot of the urban centres, they would have a continuum of things happening, whereas with us in the rural areas, it's not quite as easy. So we tend to do a lot of quizzes, and we do, as it was said earlier, referenced earlier, we tend to go after the after schools groups in the urban centres, and we go after the junior youth clubs, which are from 10 upwards, and we would often visit schools in primary in rural areas as well on request, because again, I think it's important to let them know that we have Eurodesk in the county, and that when they go into secondary school where we are. So if you start that process by raising awareness by quizzes and telling them who you are and where you're based, it tends to pay off then in second level. So I suppose, so this quiz is based on the whole notion of the online quizzes that be like Jeopardy and things they might have seen before. And I suppose one of the reasons we use this format is you as the facilitator can read the question and read the answers if there's any literacy or language difficulties. And if like last year, as has been said before, we had to do it all over Zoom, but if we were in a classroom situation, we put it up on the whiteboard and we read it out to them in case any of them have any difficulties. And then usually what happens is they just say A, B, C, or D. Their teacher might have given them out a blank sheet of paper and they just write A, B, C, or D. Or in one school, they did it verbally. They put up their hand and say which. So you can adapt them very easily for language and for any difficulties that may be there. So you just put up the question, you give them a few minutes, and then you go to the answers, which is the next sheet over, and it just shows them the right answer, and off you go again. So I just have a couple of examples to run through. Again, this one is about the color of the sea, and the answer will come up then automatically afterwards. One of the tips I would give people if they're designing any quizzes or doing any quizzes like this, and this one is available afterwards as well, and people can adapt as they wish, is make sure there's questions on current culture like music. So Lewis Capaldi, and who is he? Because they'll relate to him, they'll know his music or whatever, and then they'll make a guess at who he is. And then the other one is to make sure there's sports questions in it, or you'll have them kicking off. Now the girls don't tend to like the questions as much as the boys, but just to keep everything going. So again, you ask a question about Ronaldo and they more than likely know it. And then I suppose in terms of European awareness, if you sprinkle in the really serious questions or the questions you'd like them to know about Europe in between the popular questions, it tends to work well. So this one, what's the picture on the back of a euro banknote? And in a school setting, it's fine because they'll just have to make a guess or if they know. In a home setting last year when we were doing it via Zoom, cameras started going off and you knew full well young people were running to get money and have a look at it. So I suppose as a youth worker, you just adapt to that, or maybe you shorten the time frame they can go and Google it or find it out. Because in the normal setting, they wouldn't get to cheat like that, if we're calling it that. Okay, so the next one then, I suppose this was one we brought in for the Zoom specifically, but it could be used in a youth club setting or school setting, maybe not so much school setting, but certainly a youth club setting as well, where they would have to go, or I suppose you could use it, they could do it, they could write it down in a school setting, but in the home setting, what we asked them to do was go away and find an object to represent the word Europe. So to spell it out. And again, it's about them thinking about or them knowing how to spell the word Europe, which you might assume is always, you know, something they'll do off the top of their head, but maybe not. So if they had to go away and get an orange and we had umbrellas and ropes and oranges and packets of popcorn and eggs. One lad ran to the screen on the Zoom call with an egg and dropped it. But we gave him a prize anyway, because, you know, embarrassment online had to be balanced with something. Then this one is the food round, which is really, really popular in when you can do the face-to-face, not so much online. But I said I'd put it in there because if people are adapting and to show what works. A couple of years ago, we did this just as a way of having it. And what we did was we gave them out a plate of food as one of the rounds while people were correcting the previous rounds. And it had like feta cheese, and it had salami, and it had a piece of cheddar cheese, brown bread, chocolate, Swiss chocolate, and whatever. And you gave them the food round, and as a team, they were working together so they had to taste the foods and then name the country it came from. So there was a bonus point for naming that it was feta cheese and it came from Greece. And I suppose you think these things are all done in fun, and they are, because fun is part of youth work. But I suppose there's a lasting effect because it's all awareness raising. And for me, the biggest example of that was that particular one where the feta cheese was on it. I met a lady I think about 2 to 3 weeks after we had done the quiz in a rural youth club, and I met her after mess. And she came over to me and said, "What have you done? My son is looking for feta cheese for his lunchbox after whatever you were doing at the youth club." And I just thought it was marvellous that the young fella knew that feta cheese came from Greece, and he was looking for the mother to get it for the lunchbox, and he going to a rural school in Tipperary. So I think it does. These things can all leave a lasting effect and create awareness of Europe, which is obviously the purpose of the whole thing. So then last year, thanks to a colleague of mine, I won't take credit for this, a colleague of mine helped us design another type of interactive quiz for the older age group that had points attached to it. So because obviously the younger age group love the interactive, they love tasting the food, they love the prizes or running around the house finding things. The older ones are more competitive. So you pick a section and you pick an amount and you answer the question. And when you go into it, which you'll see when you get it with the handouts later, it's a run-in tally. So if you've 10 teams, you just put 10 in and it runs. When they answer a question right, it calculates as it goes. So they can also see on screen when you're dealing with them, be it in a whiteboard situation or over Zoom, they can see who's winning, which adds a sense of excitement and energy to the thing as well. So prizes, just to mention that, I think prizes are key, and thanks to Margareta and our partners in Eurodesk, we often have some funds to do that. It's really important to give kids something afterwards. It's not just awareness raising. I think the prize giving is part of it, and if the prizes are branded, you continue your awareness raising there as well. So I think that's key. Just to mention that last year, a bit like what Una said, last year we also had other online things that we normally do live, things such as promoting Eurodesk and other European opportunities by having online Zoom calls. So last year we did one with a returned volunteer who had been an EVS volunteer, and it gave people a chance to know what the European Solidarity Corps are all about. So that's me done.
That was a really wonderful example of the wealth and depth of how to use the non-formal education setting to really, bring curiosity about Europe. And if that curiosity it can be developed further, now we're going over to Julie over in Crosscurrent Dublin, and she's going to look at the myth-busting fears. Over to you, Julie.
Thanks, TJ. So what I'm going to talk to you today is a workshop that we developed called Is Europe for You workshop. And it was, as TJ said, basically about breaking down barriers so that people can get opportunities that they may not take up because of worries and stresses that they believe that they have. So the aim of the workshop was basically to explore the barriers preventing young people from traveling. A lot of young people were aware of opportunities, but they either didn't recognize themselves as somebody who could avail of those opportunities, or they felt that they weren't strong enough to go and do those opportunities. So the workshop was there to identify the benefits of going abroad, to explore the issues that were stopping young people traveling, and trying to answer those by giving facts and exploring the issue. And it was to then tell young people, giving that opportunity of what was available to them, either studying, working, or volunteering abroad. And then the last thing of the workshop, which we brought in, which was really probably the most important thing, it was to invite a returned EVS volunteer to talk about their personal experience, so to give that peer-led input into the workshop. So the workshop was quite interactive. I suppose is probably the most important thing about the workshop. It was really led by the young people who were there. In 2019, we didn't do it last year, but in 2019, 72 young people aged between 14 and 24 participated in the Europe for You workshops. And what we actually did was we learn as we go, but one of the things that was very successful was to bring young people from different areas. So they already had that feeling of being in a different environment. And so then they could explore that feeling of meeting new people, even within this workshop, and how, because some of them wouldn't be used to meeting new people and all that. So and the idea was they were split up randomly into different groups, and they were asked to discuss the positives and negatives of volunteering in the EU, or it could have been working, or it could have been studying. So as you can see them working there in groups, and they may not necessarily have known those other young people. And so this is really from what the young people said themselves, what they felt were the positive things about working, going abroad, was they gain new skills, they would probably gain confidence, they felt that they probably would make friendships, they would say, yes, we probably experience a different culture, it would be life-changing, and it would open up opportunities, and it would look really good in the CV. So they all knew, actually, when they sat down, they realized the opportunities and why it's so good to travel. And then obviously they were asked on the second side of the page was to figure out what the negative things about traveling were, and maybe the culture shock. A lot of them were worried about the cost. They didn't think they could afford to go away for a year. A lot of them were worried, and it's I don't know if it's just an Irish thing, but they have a real fear of other people not speaking or not being able to speak somebody's language. A lot of them were worried about being homesick and FOMO. A lot of them felt that while they were away, their friends would go off and they would miss out on a lot of stuff. So after they brought all the stuff together, basically they could see that everybody had the same fears and everybody had the same worries. And it was really good for them to all be able to express it. We also spent a lot of time myth busting, and what that meant was we were explaining about the cost and how it's sometimes cheaper to go away. There are programs that they can avail of that will help with the cost. And so while this discussion was going, they felt supported by each other, because they felt, actually, I'm not the only one who has these fears. I'm not the person that you see everybody else heading off, and why can't I do it? They realized that everybody has these fears and everybody has these worries. Another thing about the myth busting was about the language, and that a lot of other Europeans are very happy to speak English to you, and which comes as a huge surprise to Irish people. And then the last bit, which was the peer-led discussion. So any workshop that we did, we invited somebody who'd already availed of, it was the EVS at the time, but now the European Solidarity Corps. And these were inspiring young people who actually were Irish, who have gone away and come back. And the young people could really relate to these young people. Sometimes the barrier is that they don't know anybody else who has traveled. And so meeting somebody from their area who has actually availed of something really inspires them. And they probably change the dynamic and the atmosphere within the workshops and really make it a reality. And if any of you are it's a very simple workshop. It's a piece of paper that's divided into negative, positives. Let's have a discussion. But if you are to do this workshop, I would really recommend you trying to source one of the volunteers that have come back and get them to come and talk to your young people. It can be a real game changer. Just the evaluations that we got from the young people, they found the workshop really fast and fun. And the workshop, a lot of them didn't really know where they come to the workshop. They really kind of just came along going, not too sure what this means. I wouldn't have any intention of going away. But actually the workshop and meeting the young person who has gone away made them think about going away. Other people worry about the same things I do. I think that's a huge thing as well. I never knew there were so many opportunities in Europe. And Amy was the peer at the moment. I really liked listening to Amy, who volunteered abroad. So that's an example of what they fed back.
Julie, thank you so much.
Brilliant. You can see how to contact us there anyway. And thanks, everybody.
Keeping the simulation going. I love that, connecting young people with young people there. Oh, it's just wonderful. And so now we're going to trip over to Donegal, and Kasia going to tell us about a virtual airport, aren't you?
Thank you very much, TJ. So once we broke up all of the barriers of traveling, we can just create the fake airport. Why not in Donegal? So my name is Kasia, I'm Youth Information Officer in Donegal Youth Service, and today I'm going to briefly talk about the Time to Move event that took place in 2019. It's called Get Up, Go and Explore. It's very simple. I believe the name of the event says everything. How to create the amazing environment for young people, especially from disadvantaged background, for example, like the rural areas of Ireland, where we live here in Donegal. Get up just to make the effort, go, look for the information and explore what's available to you. As you can see, we have created a very innovative way of inviting people to our event. It was just a boarding pass, and the whole journey has started with the boarding pass. Once the young people were entering our building, they had to show the boarding pass. They had to go through the whole security check and then passport check. So that was like for many of them, that was the first time when they were experiencing anything similar to the actual airport environment. On the next slide, you can see that working together means achieving more. And in that particular context, when we were preparing Time to Move event 2 years ago, whole YIC team, also European Solidarity Corps volunteers and local young people were involved. It helped us to create the environment where we were able to share our skills, our knowledge and expertise. So as you can see on the picture, we were available with whatever we're happy to talk about. Some people were talking about opportunities, European opportunities. Other people were presenting how to develop the skills during European mobility and much, much more. On the next slide, you can see some amazing pictures from the day where we have many young people smiling and sharing the good vibes. We can see our workers as well talking more in depth about the European projects. The whole drop-in area, as you can see, there were some gates, gate 1, gate 2, gate 3, and gate 4. At each gate, there was a different topic covered. So, for instance, in gate 3, we were talking about studying abroad, and gate 4 was all about European Solidarity Corps. On the next slide, we can see how amazing it is to have some gadgets from Eurodesk, which Małgorzata is always providing to us. They're always eye-catching and young people just love them, so it's nice to share. It also helps us to provide the hands-on experience because people can actually see the European sign. They can feel what it means to go abroad. They can read about it, they can hear about it, and they can talk about it. Also very important during that event, but not only, was creating the safe space and non-judgmental approach. We were working with people, young people in need, with young people from very disadvantaged background. We couldn't allow ourselves to create the place where they couldn't feel comfortable, you know. Also, I would like to talk about how important it is to share the information after the event. It's raising the culture of community spirit, because once we can mix local people with our volunteers, with local volunteers, we can create like an amazing bubble of mutual respect and support. I would love to speak much more about it, but of course we don't have enough time. But if anyone is interested in talking a little bit more about the whole event, I'm more than happy to answer your questions. And thank you very much for your attention, and I hope that you're enjoying the event.
Thank you so much, Kasia. I think I want one of those survival guides to life resources there. I want to find out about that later. Okay, so Ross, you have your full 4 minutes. Over to you.
Thank you very much, TJ, and I'll see if I get started. So I'm Ross, I'm a Eurodesk ambassador, and unlike the rest of us, unlike the rest of the people who previously spoke, I'm actually from Dublin, so very much bringing back the long missed Dublin representation from the east side, which is usually uncommon in most activism, but especially it is. So as a young person myself, I talk about how we use our young European experiences to inspire other young people. So who we are is that we're a group of engaged youth ambassadors from all across Ireland, nominated by different youth organisations, so such as YMCA, the Europe Direct Centres and Corliss. So unlike coming from one organisation, we come from a load of different organisations nominated to all represent as Eurodesk ambassadors. So this means we all have different European experiences too, which some involved in the European Solidarity Corps, others being involved in the European Youth Event, and some just like Europe in general. I know where Kasia, she mentioned about the European passport, and that's actually the first time I actually went on my own to an airport, was actually going to Brussels. So very much have that relation in that too. So this also brings the skills from our other volunteering experiences to work with Spun Out, the National Youth Council, ISSU, and also the team working skills, and also welcoming new ambassadors to bring these skills while keeping a strong, committed group. So in the group, we have people who are representing about the European Youth Parliament and the European Youth Event, but we also have a very much a defined group of youth workers and activists. So Adam Lamb was one of our activists who just got elected Deputy President of the Irish Second Level Student Union. Maya Kelly, who won Student Activist of the Year. So having what is officially the activist that is most rated, I think is very much an achievement of that. And then for myself, I got elected to the Student Union. So I think it's for having that sort of committed group that has the experience, but also the recognition, also expands the sort of reach of our group and how we sort of use our European identity to expand that. So we apply that to events, and very much events. We started small with a Time to Move event in October to start planning European trips. However, most recently we did the Eye on the Edge, which happened virtually in Galway, and that was our most successful event so far, especially organised and very much formal in that way. So we had a large group of 15 young people, especially, attending and fully participating in quizzes, the Human Library, and being able to share our thoughts in Europe as well through that as well. We've also been involved in the Eurodesk multiplier meetings. So we actually talk to other youth workers and giving them feedback on events, as well as being involved in the Eric Equality Youth Information Label by myself and Jackie. So ensuring quality youth information, because obviously that's the most important thing, is to ensure that we do have quality information on things such as European opportunities so that young people can be fully informed. And obviously on ourselves, we also advertise these opportunities through social media and the likes of our presentation. So otherwise, it's collaboration with youth workers is the biggest thing, and especially our nominating organizations to share content and provide youth feedback. Because I think most importantly, from a youth worker perspective, it's good that you have an event, but I think having a youth proof and youth check on it is especially important. And especially as ourselves as youth workers and as youth participants, we can have both sides of the perspective and be able to sort of have that unique aspect into it, but also being able to sort of link it with our sort of networks and be multipliers ourselves. So we share it on social media to the Eurodesk accounts, on Eurodesk ambassadors on Instagram, and on Eurodesk IE on Twitter as our main sort of socials, and also being able to share our European experiences to young people through media. So, for example, to be involved in radio, but also through articles and videos and interviews, such as with Alan Stowe for EOE on the Edge, and also speaking at stands and when it pre-COVID times, obviously. So that's sort of our experience. So what do we bring, and now what can sort of the people here apply to it? So this gives us a major advantage knowing exactly what young people would want an event and maximizing the positives of it. To make sure it isn't just a death by PowerPoint and making sure it's engaged. So relating to young people ourselves, because they may see a youth work and they think, oh, STEM again. But if you have someone who actually has direct experience of this opportunity and be able to ask any sort of fears and worries or opportunities that an experience may bring, such as with the European Solidarity Corps, and bring a personal perspective to it, that what makes the young people most engaged and most interested to learn more about it and apply their European identity to it. We also use interactive tools such as Kahoot, which is very much loved by all of us as youth workers, but also doing them ourselves. And we also try to also have mini competition with it, but also a human library to talk about experiences and using ways that don't seem very obvious to sort of make it applicable to young people ourselves. And also answering with a personal experience as well, rather than just purely leaflets, information, and just information overload, and actually providing more of a casual chat as well, but also experience of working with other organizations and bringing European identity to young people to show that it is actually real, it does actually being shown, and we're the example of it. So that's, and also by also working with young youth workers, that we'll actually make sure it's the best events we can, and to show the young people are fully engaged. So thank you very much for hosting, and I'm happy to answer any questions in the breakout room.
Excellent. So just to manage the time and the opportunity we have together, the MC is now handing over his role completely to Malgorzata to finish up today, Malgorzata, in whatever way you feel is the best.
Okay, thank you so much, TJ, and to all wonderful speakers today. I, of course, would like to ask everyone who was speaking today and for our wonderful MC, TJ, and Fabian, who did lots of technical work in the background, our beautiful background images as well, and who made sure that everyone can see us and hear us and that everyone runs smoothly. So thanks a lot. So we hope to have some follow-up, and we always open to answer any questions from you, questions about opportunities for young people, activities of Eurodesk, our campaigns, and our slogan is whatever the questions, start with us, start with Eurodesk. You may not know the answer, but we may be able to refer you to the right place to get the answer as well.